the topic given to me is, how do we select and sequence therapy in advanced renal cell carcinoma, clear cell variety. And, many of you know all these illustrious cricket players. And, right from Sachin Tendulkar to some of you may know some of the old names like Garfield Sobers and Don Bradman and Dr. Waqar Younis and Steve Waugh. So what is common? They are all featuring in the list of all-time greats in the cricket field in all kinds of cricket. But if suppose all of them are available to you and imagine that you are all IPL team managers and you have to choose your team, what will you do? Currently, the IPL franchisee managers go through some ideas. They have some techniques. They look at what is their remaining kitty of money, and then they look at how many slots they have available and whether they can take an Indian player or an overseas player and how much they can cap on a highest for a single player. So these are all some of the facts based on which an IPL team is selected by the franchisee manager. Their ultimate goal is to win the cup. And in the context of our RCC, we can say that our ultimate goal is to achieve a progression-free survival and an overall survival. So that's our goal, like this cup. So from that context of survival, if you look at what happened in 2004, there were only 2 FDA-approved drugs in 2004, and the median survival in advanced RCC was around 12 to 15 months, as you all know. So one can call that as a dark age of renal cell carcinoma. As compared to the current times, one can call it as golden age of renal cell carcinoma. Why? Because there are 15 FDA-approved drugs in 2019 and the median survival, that's the most important goal, has reached up to 36 to 48 months in 2020. So that's the change in the paradigm. It all started with the work from Robert Mosted's group and published in 2008 and 2009. Sunitinib, as compared to interferon, showed the progression-free survival at 11 months as compared to 5.1 months. That really changed the paradigm of how we treated clear cell metastatic RCC in the first line. Then for about 10 years, it was sunitinib and sometimes pazopanib. They were ruling the roost. And by 2015, we started having the access to axitinib and everolimus. So if patients progress after single agent sunitinib or pazopanib, you would go to axitinib or everolimus. And if the patient further progresses, you would do whatever is left to be treated. That was the sequence that was available, and that was the paradigm. But then by 2017, we started to understand that the treatment can be approached differently. We started to risk stratify these patients as favorable, intermediate, and poor risk. And then we started having the access to nivolumab and the cabozantinib and in the second line setting. But now, if you see what is available, there are so many good players available, be it cytokines, and in VEGF TKIs, you now have the cabozantinib, tivozanib, and lenvatinib. And then if you go to the immunotherapy, you have the Nivo, Ipi, Pembro, and avelumab. So this number of good players are available to you to choose. The only problem is how do you choose and how do we sequence? There are some ways to select. You all know that you would automatically look at whether the patient has got a good risk profile, indolent disease, or an intermediate or poor risk profile, or a very aggressive disease. You may have to also consider whether the patient was treated with first-line TKI, because that's the very common scenario throughout the country. So these are some of the selection criteria based on which you will choose your treatment when the patient is sitting in front of you. There are some guidelines, of course. We all allude to the NCCN guidelines, and NCCN guidelines would say that in favorable risk, you would choose sunitinib, pazopanib, or pembro axitinib as the preferred regimen. Whereas in poor and intermediate risk today, the choice in 2020 for NCCN would be to have Ipi-Nivo category 1, Axi Pembro category 1, and cabozantinib as choice. So there are other recommendations, but these are the principal choices as of now. But it would be nice to know how each of these players performed real time on ground and what is their match track record, so that we can make realistic, correct choices whenever we choose these patients when the patient is in front of us. For example, if you're thinking about a single agent TKI as the first line, then what is the data? We all know that it has been always sunitinib and nothing else was available. So is there anything that can perform better than sunitinib? We have tivozanib, we have axitinib, but there was a trial compares, as you know, sunitinib versus pazopanib, that nothing was different between the PFS and the median overall survival to choose between the two. Tivozanib and axitinib showed some superiority over a single agent previously known VEGF TKI, but it was sorafenib, and also the choice of the patient were all groups. Whereas in a specific intermediate and poor risk group, we have a very good trial, that's the cabozantinib, in which the cabozantinib for the first time showed that something superior can be achieved over and above sunitinib, and the median PFS with cabozantinib was 8.2 months as compared to 5.6 months with sunitinib, and 26 months median survival, overall survival as compared to 21 months median overall survival, but that was specific to intermediate and poor risk group. So we have a good player who is doing better than sunitinib in the intermediate and poor risk group. So that's the randomized cabozantinib trial for you, phase 2 trial. The most important point to note also is the overall response rate of 46% that can be achieved with cabozantinib, whereas you would achieve an overall response rate of 18 with sunitinib. There is no real axitinib versus sunitinib randomized control trial in the first line. That's the answer that we want, but there is something indirect to derive from. There is a real world multicenter analysis. This is basically from a Japanese group who looked at around 169 patients from 5 to 6 hospitals, and this was over a period of 10 years. And the bottom line is, compared with sunitinib, axitinib had a significantly prolonged overall survival, a better safety profile, and a clinical response rate as compared to sunitinib in the first line. So whether you want to draw something out of this in your clinical practice today, you can think about this, but that's the landscape of their data set. The relative dose intensity that can be delivered with axitinib was good, and the treatment discontinuation with axitinib was lower than sunitinib, and the objective response rates were better, PFS and cancer-specific survival, overall survival, and the first-line TKI failure-free survival was all superior with axitinib. But this is a collective Japanese data and in a non-randomized control trial setting. Now, what about choosing two agents in the first line? Is it superior to sunitinib? That's the answer we want. For example, is pembro axitinib better than sunitinib single agent, or ipi-nivo better, or axitinib avelumab, and then now we have atezolizumab, bevacizumab. These are the doublet combinations that are available today, but what is the data set to draw some information out of this? For that, we need to divide the patients into favorable risk group and look at the data set, and then divide them into poor and intermediate risk group and look at the data set and try to derive our decision making. This is from the favorable risk group. If you look at the pembro axitinib study, that's the Keynote 426, and the ipi-nivo study, Checkmate 2 and 4. So what do we know? What did these doublets achieve in favorable risk group? Unfortunately, for anyone, it's very easy to understand. The curves are almost superimposing, and what we know out of this is there is no significant overall survival difference by adding a doublet in the favorable risk group as of today over and above sunitinib. That's the gross message. But then if you look at the PFS, yes, the pembro plus axitinib showed a superior PFS as compared to sunitinib alone. And then we also had a better overall response rate with pembro axitinib as compared to sunitinib. You didn't see this ORR advantage with, mind you, with the ipi-nivo. That also something to be noted. So in the favorable risk group, what we now know today is that there is no significant difference in the overall survival with these doublets as you compare to sunitinib. But of course, you can achieve a better PFS with pembro axitinib, better ORR with pembro axitinib. And so whether you want to look at that, it's up to you when you deal with your patient in front of you. What about poor and intermediate risk group? Whether these doublets can score over the single agent, erstwhile sunitinib. What do we know? Of course, the NCCN has put this as a preferred option in poor and intermediate risk group. Ipi-Nivo is category 1 and pembrolizumab is category 1. You all know that. But then, what is the data telling us? This is the Nivo-Ipi and the pembrolizumab data set. Both of them had a good follow-up, 23 months and 42 months. So good follow-up. And what was the long-term benefit achieved with these doublets in this intermediate to poor risk subset? You can see that the Ipi-Nivo and also pembrolizumab, both of them tend to show a superior overall survival as compared to sunitinib alone. For example, the Ipi-Nivo would show an overall survival of 47 months as compared to 26 months for sunitinib alone, and the median overall survival with pembrolizumab is not yet reached as compared to sunitinib, which is the same 26-28 months. So something has really changed when you use a doublet in the poor and intermediate risk group. And if you want to draw some comparison with the historical understanding that in the era of high dose interleukin 2, we know that there were some patients which were about less than 10% who were really long-term survivors, and we were always looking at that flat curve of those IL-2 patients who were the excellent responders. We always knew in the back of our mind that there is a subgroup and IL-2, there is a flattening of the curve and long-term survivors. So are we seeing something like that in the long run with these doublet therapies? This is the overall response rate with Nivo-Ipi with 42% and axitinib pembro 55%. That's the overall response rate. And if you want to look at the CR, complete response rate of 10% with Nivo-Ipi and 6.5% with pembro-axitinib. And then one more thing that you need to know is, we all know that one of the problems with the immune checkpoint inhibitors, particularly with MR metastatic renal cell carcinoma, is that there are something called early progression, and we'll be interested to know what is the progressive disease rate with these doublets. So we have a progressive disease rate which is around 27% with regard to 27% with regard to the Nivo-Ipi, and around 14.6 with the pembrolizumab. But if you look at these curves and try to derive some lessons out of these landmark analysis, what you see is that with the Nivo-Ipi, you see that at around 9 months, the curves are starting to separate. And you see a similar effect with the pembro-axitinib. That's okay. Now then, if you bring it to the next time point of 30 months, what you see is that the Nivo-Ipi is beginning to flatten. This is something that we always want to see, whereas the sunitinib is still going downhill. And then if you look at the pembro-axitinib, you don't see that flattening yet, and the sunitinib is following its previously known diktat of continuous downslide. And at the end of around 42 months or 30 months plus, what you see is that the Nivo-Ipi is really flat, and the sunitinib has come down to really 18 to 19%. And here is where you have the median progression for sunitinib, both the studies around 8 months, and the Nivo-Ipi has got a median PFS of around 12 months, and the pembro-axitinib has got a median PFS 12.7 months. But please note the flat curve of the Nivo-Ipi. So what is the significance of such CR or some very good responses that can be achieved? Of course, we clearly see the duration of response in these studies, and we note particularly with the Nivo-Ipi study that in patients who have achieved a very good response or a CR, there are still 34% of patients who continue to be on treatment, and 47% of the patients are taken off treatment but have not yet received the second line therapy, and only 19% of the patients went on to receive a second line therapy. This is with regard to the Nivo-Ipi, and this is with regard to the people who achieved the CR. So there is something very important if you achieve a very good response with these studies. And what is the toxicity profile? This is the toxicity profile. at least as compared to sunitinib, the toxicity profile is not bad when you use the doublet, and even over a period of time you see acceptable toxicity profile. We are all afraid of the toxicity with Nivo EP, but what we were looking at so far is 94% had some adverse event. But what needs to be looked at is that, of course, 60% needed systemic steroids, but 80% of them resolved, except people with skin rash and endocrine dysfunctions. Most of these side effects with the Nivo EP arm could be managed, or they were able to resolve. So that is something that we need to understand. So the conclusion for the doublet in the intermediate and poor risk is that there is a short-term efficacy. You need to be mindful of the toxicity, and the long-term efficacy. We are now aware of the long-term efficacy of Ipi-Nivo and the Pembro axitinib, and here is the avelumab axitinib also, which is a phase 2. That's why I have not put it there. But the overall context of all the three trials of these doublet trials are put here. What we know now is that as of now, the Nivo EP is approved for the high-risk group, whereas the Pembro axitinib is approved for both the high-risk and also the intermediate, both the high-risk, intermediate, and the favorable risk group. What about subsequent therapy? I'll be very brief around here. These were the original available in the Robert Morse's 2000 to 2010 era. Axitinib, sorafenib, everolimus were the available agents, and what could we know then? The PFS around 8 to 5% and ORR of anywhere between 10 to 20%. But there are now a lot of new players, so and there are some guidelines. And so what do we have as the data out of all these players? Let's quickly review. What we now know is this is the post-TKI therapy data set. You are all already aware of the axitinib and everolimus. I've already told you, so we concentrate on the cabozantinib and the nivolumab and a phase 2 data from lenvatinib, everolimus. All the others are phase 3. So the bottom line is you can reach an ORR of around 20% with the cabozantinib or single agent nivolumab, and you can still reach a median overall survival of 20 months. And on a quick run, axitinib, everolimus, axitinib is better, and cabozantinib, everolimus, cabozantinib is better. These are all in second line. And again, nivolumab, everolimus, nivolumab is better. And so that's the message. Nivolumab post first line therapy can still give you a good overall response rate of 25%. There is an another interesting approach wherein patients who are treated with nivolumab single agent, that if they progress, you rescue them with addition of ipilimumab. That's the Titan trial that adopted that strategy, wherein you would give an immunotherapeutic boost with the addition of ipi with the CTLA4 inhibition. So you will see whether you can boost the effect. That's the data set. The boost effect will lead to a higher PFS, and the checkmate 16, in which the ipi-nivo combo in patients who have been prior treated. So in second line setting, the ipi-nivo combo, this is what it can do to you, and this is the putting into context of the role of the doublet ipi-nivo in the patients who are already treated. You can still reach an ORR of around 11%, and you can reach CR in the salvage setting of 2.7%. But remember, this is the first line data set of Nivo EP, 39% ORR. That was the original data set. This is the lenvatinib pembrolizumab for people who are interested. I'm not going into the detail. This is the second doublet in the second line setting. So this is the summary of what we know in the second line setting. If patient had done well more than 1 year with the first line single agent VEGF inhibitor, maybe you can consider a second VEGF inhibitor with cabozantinib or axitinib. And if the patient had a brief response to a single agent VEGF inhibitor, say pazopanib or sunitinib, and then if you want to later on consider a VEGF IO combo, consider pembrolizumab plus axitinib. And if there is no response to the first line single agent VEGF inhibitor, maybe you should consider ipi-nivo or single agent nivo. And if there was no response at all to VEGF plus IO, Then you have cabozantinib or axitinib. And there is some interesting data evolving with lenvatinib, everolimus. So there are many new players added. So as a good captain, you have to pick and choose so that your eye is on the cup. So you will be able to do that, and our eye is on the survival and the quality of play, so on and so forth. And while Dhoni thanked the nation, we want to thank him and thank you all for listening. Thank you.